Welcome to the More Happiness, Less Suffering podcast. I'm Casey Howe, Senior Meditation and Dharma Teacher for Inside LA.
And I'm Dr. Monisha Vasa, psychiatrist. In our little podcasting studio in Orange County, California, we bring wisdom from the couch and the cushion to your real-life questions and struggles. So grab a cup of tea and join us. We're so glad you're here.
Okay. All right.
So today we'll be talking about self-acceptance and what makes it so much harder than it seems like it should be. So we're going to actually start with a poem, and then we'll move on to the question that we received. And so this is actually a poem that I wrote. Doesn't have a title yet, but it's one I actually just wrote a few days ago. Your beauty is not your body, confined by the limits of skin, limited by the reach of space and time. No, your beauty rests in your heart, radiating, infinite, through your eyes, through your words, through your touch. So let your body be, let it settle into the shape of you. Soft, round, used, and instead embody the beauty of wisdom, of kindness, the spirit that flows through this form and changes the world.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And so that pertains to this week's question, which came from one of our followers here in Orange County. And the question, which makes me laugh every time I read it, because it's so funny how she put it, but so true. How can I be truly comfortable with aging when the mirror clearly shows that my face is trying to exit my face?
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it's how it feels, it's how it feels. And so, yeah, I think that question speaks to something that we all struggle with, which comes back to this issue of how do we make peace with ourselves and our bodies as they change with time.
Well, for this one, when I think about the Buddhist path and whatnot, it's the biggie of impermanence. And I was watching Pema Chodron, and she was coming up on her 80th something birthday, and she's like, wow, look at me. She's like, I have maybe 10 years left or something like that, like realistically.
Yeah.
And I'm staring, death in the eye kind of thing. And she said, I'm so grateful that I have had the practice of meditating on death and impermanence for so long, because I don't have fear now. But when I first started practicing, I had a lot of fear, and along with that fear, of course, we have a lot of attachment to this body as self, right? We merge this idea of self. We merge with a lot of things, with concepts and ideas and beliefs and body and emotions. We self-identify. And she was talking about seeing the fruition at that time of her life of these years of practice. And I don't think that's an easy thing. And that's kind of more ultimate level kind of stuff. But I don't think it's an easy thing to overturn that, especially in today's world of this visual society, people looking at, all the Instagram images, social images, and people becoming, it's always been like this though. It's not just social, people becoming stars off their looks, and that's fine. Beauty is appreciated and all that. And when we self-identify that and quantify our worth upon that, then obviously that's going to lead to suffering, because it's a perishable attribute.
Right.
So
Yeah. I think so many things come up for me in thinking about this, because I feel like it's been such a personal process, even for me, to think about how I even start to approach this idea of self-acceptance for myself. And, I think a couple of things come to mind. It's one, I mean, I grew up in Chicago, and in Chicago, it was very different than it is here in Orange County. It's like we're covered head to toe, like 95% of the year. So it's different. There's not that sense of constant comparison in many ways to those who are around you, or I didn't feel it at least back then. And then when I moved to Southern California and I realized here, because of, how the weather is, really people are showing their bodies year round, and it's very much, I really noticed that it was difficult to not engage in that sort of comparing mind, because you're surrounded by often what felt like really high standards of beauty. And so I think about that, and I think I was sharing this story with you earlier. Yesterday I was looking through my phone, looking for a photo, and I started kind of going back many, many years and just realizing how much our body really does change over time, how much our face changes over time, and how even two photos taken within a couple of months of each other can look so different, and some might evoke a sense of, oh, I feel like I look good in that photo, and some might evoke more of a sense of aversion. And yet, you're the same person in both of those photos, right? Maybe it's a different angle, maybe it's different lighting, and yet the reaction that's generated internally is so strong. But which one is really the real you, right?
Yeah.
They're both you. And so, I think those are sort of parts of my personal journey, but also in kind of working with my patients on this piece, because obviously it's something that comes up quite a bit, with patients. And I think really a lot of the challenge is, when I was going back through those photos, or when I found myself in LA instead of Chicago, the immediate reaction is, oh, if I want to feel better about myself and if I want to accept myself more, I need to change my body. I need to change my external form somehow, to be more of whatever it is, thinner, fashionable, taller, whatever, insert whatever adjective you want to insert. And then over time, recognizing it's really not that self-acceptance. I mean, that's going to be a finishing line that continues to get
pushed
moved.
ahead. Yeah.
And that really it is an internal process more than an external process. And I think that's where we get confused, is we think, oh, I'll accept myself once I lose 10 pounds or once I do my Botox or whatever it is. And there's actually nothing inherently wrong with any of those things. It's only once we believe that that's where that self-love and self-acceptance, that's where we're going to find it. I think it's once we start to believe that where we find ourselves in a difficult situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And even all those things are shifting and changing. Even if you did lose the 10 pounds, even if you did have the bikini body. I was reading another one where this woman got the bikini body, and she was working her butt off, and she was a mother and of 2 or 3, I can't remember, doing competitions and all that stuff. And then she's like, wow, like this isn't really worth it. I'm losing time with my family and whatnot. And she ended up, just working out intermittently, but then gaining some weight back. And she's like, I just really like this. This is awesome.
Much happier.
Yeah, much happier. This is where I'm at, because even that's not sustainable, right? And this goes with anything where if we have, all of that coming together harmoniously, whether it be health or wealth or whatnot, that's subject to change. So like you mentioned, if we don't have something internal that shifts, what else is there? There's just, we're trying to make the uncertainty certain, trying to find certainty in the uncertainty,
right?
In the uncertain. So it's never going to work out.
Yeah. And I think that's where we kind of tie back into what I was sort of getting to in the poem is, what are those internal qualities that we can practice embracing as our actual manifestations of beauty? Can it be, I talk about wisdom and kindness or, in the poem, but it could be so many things, right? It could be how you love, it could be your sense of humor, it could be, any sort of quality that you love about yourself. Can you find your beauty in those places? And I know that in some ways that feels much easier said than done, and it's not always an either or proposition, but sometimes I think we even forget to try that.
Yeah.
I think we forget to look there for beauty. And of course, the other places, what are the things that your body can do, which also shifts and changes with time because that's also impermanent. But, the rarity of being able to get up and walk or to drive a car or to, make breakfast for your children. It's like these are the things that we're able to do that we also forget are a reflection of, what's beautiful about our bodies and what they're capable of. And so I think when we can start to at least remember that beauty comes from all those places. It's not just about the external shape that we have or the external form. At least maybe it allows us a little bit more spaciousness in how we perceive ourselves.
And wouldn't that be wonderful if people were talking about their partners and whatnot? And, one thing that I always look at is how kind is somebody, I mean, optimism, things like this. Like you're talking about, oh, I met a new person. One of the first things would be like, oh, that's awesome. How kind are they? As opposed to like, oh, is she hot?
Yeah.
Like, is he handsome? Like, let me see a
Right.
photo. And
Yes,
like,
yeah.
and I see this all the time, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But like, oh, you're such a lucky guy. She's super hot. Awesome. And is she nice?
yeah.
Like, is he nice? Like
Right.
these things that once we start looking at ourselves and others and complimenting ourselves and complimenting others in that way, like, wouldn't that be cool if that was like how society perceived, people like, oh man, they're good looking and they're, super nice. Like what if that was on the same
Right.
level,
Playing field.
the
Yeah.
same playing field as like
Yeah.
somebody's hot? That would be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I thought we'd do a little meditation on self-acceptance. Yeah.
Lovely.
So again, like we say, like if you're driving or something like that, and you don't have to go to full meditation mode, but just take this as more of an affirmation. And if you are in a place where you can meditate, then feel free to get into a comfortable position. These are just few minute meditations, but allowing your eyes to close. And then checking into the energy of your body and mind. Letting everything in, letting everything out. And meditation is so wonderful for self-acceptance because it is teaching us to accept the moment as it is and accepting yourself in this moment. And accepting it means without judgment. So if you notice you have crazy monkey mind, busy mind, just noticing that, letting that be as it is, without judgment. We all have that. If the mind is tired, allowing that to be as it is. This is so common as well. If there is agitation in the body, high emotions, that's okay. Letting everything in, letting everything out. And so a great meditation for self-acceptance is called good enough. Good enough. And so you could look at external things, my job, the people in my life, how much money I make, the car I drive. It's good enough. There is no finish line, as Monisha was saying. We could always want more, but this is good enough. My body, my energy level, how much I got done today, it's good enough. I am good enough. And see if you can bring this energy outward to your friends and families, neighbors, communities, that everyone is trying their best and seeing them as good enough. Nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect. And allowing this tender, open part of your heart to expand as we conclude our time together. May all beings everywhere without exception, may they all be happy and free from suffering.